Have you ever looked at someone else's vegetable garden and wondered how they make it look so effortless? Rows of bright green lettuce, tomato vines weighed down with fruit, baskets overflowing with cucumbers, while your own attempts ended with yellow leaves, empty pots, or seeds that never seemed to grow. If that's ever happened to you, here's something that might surprise you. The problem probably wasn't you. Most beginner gardens fail because they lack a green thumb. They fail because they start with vegetables that challenge even experienced gardeners. They unknowingly choose crops that demand perfect timing, perfect soil, perfect watering, and just the right weather. Then, when those plants struggle, they assume gardening simply isn't for them. Nothing could be further from the truth. The reality is that some vegetables are incredibly forgiving. They tolerate small mistakes, bounce back from neglect, and produce harvests that make first-time gardeners feel like experts. In fact, one of the vegetables on today's list can produce enough food from a single plant that many gardeners end up giving the extras away to friends and neighbors. Another can be harvested in less than a month. And the number one vegetable on this list is probably not the one you're expecting. Stay with us until the very end, because each vegetable becomes easier than the last, and the final one has been helping beginner gardeners build confidence for generations. Let's get growing. Section 1. Why most beginner gardens fail. Before we talk about the easiest vegetables to grow, we need to answer an important question. Why do so many beginner gardens fail? Walk into almost any garden center during spring and you'll see shelves packed with colorful seed packets and healthy young plants. Everything looks easy. The pictures show perfect vegetables growing under blue skies, making it seem as though success is almost guaranteed. But those seed packets rarely tell the whole story. Many beginners choose vegetables because they look delicious, not because they're beginner-friendly. Large beefsteak tomatoes, cauliflower, celery, artichokes, bell peppers. These vegetables can absolutely be grown successfully, but many of them require precise temperatures, consistent watering, rich soil, pest management, and plenty of patience. For someone planting their very first garden, that's like learning to drive in a Formula One race car. The smartest gardeners take a different approach. Instead of trying to grow everything, they choose vegetables that practically want to grow. Plants that forgive missed watering, plants that grow quickly enough to keep you motivated, plants that reward even the smallest amount of effort. Because here's something experienced gardeners understand. Success builds confidence. Your first successful harvest doesn't just feed your family, it changes the way you think. Suddenly, gardening no longer feels mysterious. You begin noticing your plants every morning. You learn what healthy leaves look like. You become excited to try something new. One successful season often becomes a lifelong hobby. That's why the vegetables on today's list aren't necessarily the most valuable. They're the ones most likely to make you fall in love with gardening. Let's start with number 10. Number 10. Radishes. Imagine planting a seed today and eating fresh vegetables before next month arrives. That sounds impossible to many beginners, but that's exactly what radishes offer. Radishes are among the fastest-growing vegetables on Earth. Many varieties mature in as little as 25 to 30 days. That's barely enough time to forget where you planted them. For beginners, this is incredibly important. Gardening often feels slow. You water the soil. You wait. Nothing happens. Another week passes. Still nothing. Many people give up before they ever see results. Radishes change that experience completely. Within days, tiny green seedlings begin pushing through the soil. Every morning brings visible growth. Before you know it, the bright red tops begin peeking above the ground, quietly announcing that harvest day is almost here. Growing radishes couldn't be much simpler. They prefer cool weather, loose soil, and plenty of sunlight. Scatter the seeds about ½ an inch deep, keep the soil slightly moist, and nature does most of the work. One mistake beginners often make is planting them too close together. Each radish needs enough room underground to develop properly. Crowded plants compete for space and nutrients, leaving you with tiny, misshapen roots. Another common mistake is waiting too long to harvest. Unlike many vegetables that improve with age, radishes become woody and overly spicy if left in the ground too long. Harvest them while they're young, crisp, and tender. The reward? Fresh, crunchy radishes with a peppery bite that tastes nothing like the ones that have spent weeks sitting on supermarket shelves. But if you think harvesting vegetables in less than a month is satisfying, the next vegetable can keep producing food for weeks from a single planting. Number 9. Lettuce. Most people think of lettuce as something that comes wrapped in plastic at the grocery store. Few realize just how easy and rewarding it is to grow at home. Lettuce has one incredible advantage. You don't always harvest the whole plant. Instead, many gardeners use what's called the cut-and-come-again method. Rather than pulling the plant out of the ground, you simply trim the outer leaves. The center continues growing. A week or two later, you harvest again and again. One planting can provide fresh salads for weeks. It's one of the easiest ways to stretch your garden's productivity without planting more seeds. Lettuce also grows beautifully in containers. You don't need a large backyard. A sunny balcony, a patio, even a windowsill with enough light can produce surprisingly healthy plants. Because lettuce grows quickly, it constantly rewards your effort. Every watering feels worthwhile because visible growth isn't far behind. The biggest enemy of lettuce isn't insects, it's heat. Once temperatures climb too high, lettuce begins a process gardeners call bolting. Instead of producing tender leaves, the plant shifts its energy toward making flowers and seeds. The leaves become bitter, the texture changes, and the harvest quickly loses its appeal. That's why lettuce performs best during spring and autumn in many climates. If you can provide afternoon shade during hotter weather, you'll enjoy fresh harvests for even longer. Fresh-picked lettuce also has something supermarkets simply can't match: flavor. Leaves harvested minutes before lunch remain crisp, sweet, and full of moisture. Once you've tasted garden-fresh lettuce, it's difficult to go back. But perhaps the easiest vegetable of all isn't even planted from seeds every time. Sometimes you've already bought it. Number 8. Green onions. This might be the most satisfying gardening trick on today's list. The next time you buy green onions from the supermarket, don't throw away the white root ends. Place them in a small glass of water. Within days, fresh green shoots begin growing again. No seeds, no fertilizer, no complicated gardening knowledge, just sunlight, water, and patience. Once the shoots become several inches tall, you can transfer them into soil, where they'll continue producing fresh leaves. It's one of the simplest ways to discover just how amazing plants really are. Green onions are also incredibly forgiving. Forget to water them for a day, they'll usually recover. Limited garden space? They don't mind containers. Only have partial sunlight? They'll often grow anyway. They're also harvested continuously. Instead of removing the whole plant, simply trim the leaves you need for cooking. The roots remain alive underground, sending up new growth again and again. For families who cook regularly, this means fresh onions are often just a few steps away. It's gardening at its simplest, and watching supermarket leftovers transform into living plants never gets old. But while green onions regrow, the next vegetable grows so quickly that many beginners can't believe how much food one small planting can produce. Number 7. Spinach. Spinach has earned a reputation as one of the healthiest vegetables you can eat. Thankfully, it's also one of the easiest to grow. Unlike vegetables that struggle in cool weather, spinach actually prefers it. Plant it during cooler months, and you'll often see strong, healthy growth while other vegetables are still waking up. Spinach seeds germinate surprisingly well in moist soil. Once established, the plants require very little attention beyond consistent watering. Just like lettuce, you can harvest the outer leaves while allowing the center to continue growing. That means one planting continues feeding you over an extended period. Fresh spinach has another advantage. Its flavor is much milder than store-bought spinach, which often spends days traveling before reaching supermarket shelves. Fresh garden spinach remains tender, vibrant, and packed with freshness. One thing beginners quickly discover is how productive spinach can become. A handful of plants often produces far more leaves than expected, enough for salads, smoothies, soups, pasta dishes, even freezing for later use. It's one of those vegetables that quietly rewards consistency rather than perfection. And speaking of rewarding plants, the next vegetable doesn't just feed you, it actually improves your soil while it grows. Number 6. Bush beans. If you've ever wished for a vegetable that practically takes care of itself, bush beans come remarkably close. They're fast-growing, highly productive, and unlike climbing beans, they don't need trellises or complicated support systems. Just plant them in a sunny location after the danger of frost has passed, keep the soil evenly moist while they're getting established, and they'll do the rest. But bush beans have a secret that makes experienced gardeners love them even more. Their roots work together with beneficial bacteria living in the soil. Those bacteria capture nitrogen from the air and convert it into a form plants can use. Nitrogen is one of the most important nutrients for healthy plant growth. In other words, bush beans don't just grow, they help feed the soil for future crops. It's one of nature's most fascinating partnerships. Within a couple of months, you'll begin spotting slender green pods hanging beneath the leaves. The first harvest is exciting. But here's the surprising part. The more beans you pick, the more the plant produces. Many beginners make the mistake of waiting until every bean becomes large. Unfortunately, older beans become tough and stringy. Harvest them while they're still young and tender. That encourages the plant to keep producing fresh pods week after week. A small row of bush beans can provide enough vegetables for countless family meals. Fresh from the garden, their flavor is sweeter, crisper, and far more satisfying than anything you'll find frozen in a supermarket. And while bush beans are wonderfully productive, the next vegetable seems almost determined to overwhelm you with food. Number 5. Cucumbers. There's something magical about picking a cucumber that's still cool from the morning air. It's crisp, refreshing, and tastes completely different from one that's spent days being transported across the country. Cucumbers are among the most generous plants a beginner can grow. One healthy vine can produce dozens of cucumbers throughout the season. That's why experienced gardeners often joke that if you plant more than 2 cucumber plants, prepare to share them with your neighbors. Cucumbers thrive in warm weather and love sunshine. They also appreciate consistent watering, not too much, not too little. Steady moisture helps prevent bitter fruit and keeps the plants producing. One tip that transforms cucumber growing is giving the vines something to climb. A simple trellis, fence, or even sturdy netting lifts the fruit off the ground. This improves airflow, reduces disease, keeps cucumbers straighter, and makes harvesting much easier. Instead of searching beneath tangled leaves, you'll see the fruit hanging clearly in front of you. Another secret? Harvest often. A cucumber left on the vine too long tells the plant its job is finished, but regular harvesting encourages even more flowers and even more cucumbers. The cycle continues for weeks. It's one of the fastest ways to fill your kitchen with fresh produce. But if you think cucumbers are productive, the next vegetable has become legendary for producing more food than most families know what to do with. Number 4. Zucchini. Ask experienced gardeners if they've ever grown zucchini. Many will laugh before answering, not because it's difficult, because it's almost unbelievably productive. There's an old gardening joke that says if you lock your car doors during summer, it's because you're afraid someone will leave zucchini inside. It sounds ridiculous until you've grown it yourself. One healthy zucchini plant can produce dozens of fruits over a single season, sometimes more than one every few days. The secret is harvesting them while they're still young. Smaller zucchini are sweeter, more tender, and encourage the plant to keep producing. Wait too long, and you'll return to discover a vegetable the size of a baseball bat. Zucchini enjoys full sun and rich soil. Give it enough space because the leaves spread surprisingly wide. The large leaves also shade the soil, helping it retain moisture during hot weather. One thing beginners should know is that zucchini produces both male and female flowers. The female flowers become fruit after pollination. Bees usually handle this naturally, which means every bee visiting your garden is quietly helping you grow dinner. It's one of those simple moments that reminds you how connected nature really is. By midsummer, you may have so much zucchini that you'll be baking bread, making soups, grilling slices, and still giving extras away. But while zucchini wins for sheer productivity, the next vegetable is often the reason many people decide to start gardening in the first place.
Number 3. Cherry tomatoes. Tomatoes are the undisputed stars of home gardens, but beginners often make one mistake. They start with giant slicing tomatoes. Large varieties demand more attention and take longer to mature. Cherry tomatoes, on the other hand, are much more forgiving. They're resilient, grow quickly, and produce enormous clusters of sweet fruit throughout the season. Plant them in full sun, support them with a cage or stake, water consistently at the base rather than over the leaves, and watch them explode with growth. One of the greatest pleasures in gardening is walking outside during summer, picking a warm cherry tomato straight from the vine and tasting it immediately. The sweetness surprises almost everyone. No supermarket tomato compares. As the weeks pass, the vines become covered with bright red, yellow, or orange fruit. Children often love harvesting them because they're like little treasures hidden among the leaves. The more you harvest, the more flowers appear. The more flowers appear, the more tomatoes you'll enjoy. It's an incredibly rewarding cycle. Still, the next vegetable doesn't just survive difficult conditions, it practically thrives in them. Number 2. Kale. Some vegetables wilt at the first sign of cold weather. Kale isn't one of them. In fact, a light frost often improves its flavor. The cold converts some of the plant's starches into natural sugars, making the leaves taste sweeter. It's one of the toughest vegetables you can grow. Heat, cold, wind, rain, kale keeps producing. Instead of harvesting the whole plant, simply remove the lower leaves as needed. The center continues growing upward for months. Some gardeners harvest from the same kale plant for an entire season. It's packed with vitamins, easy to grow, and surprisingly attractive in the garden. Its deep green or purple leaves add texture long after many vegetables have finished producing. For beginners, kale offers something invaluable: reliability, even when conditions aren't perfect. But the number one vegetable on today's list has been quietly helping families feed themselves for generations, and once you grow it yourself, you'll understand exactly why. Number 1. Potatoes. Most people think potatoes are difficult to grow. The truth is almost the opposite. They're among the most forgiving crops you can plant, and harvesting them feels like digging for buried treasure. Instead of sowing tiny seeds, potatoes are usually grown from seed potatoes. Each piece develops roots, then stems, then an entire network of underground potatoes. As the plants grow taller, gardeners gently mound soil around the stems. This simple technique encourages even more potatoes to develop beneath the surface. Then comes harvest day. The leaves begin turning yellow, the plant slowly dies back, and that's your signal. Take a garden fork, loosen the soil, and suddenly potatoes begin appearing one after another, large ones, small ones, perfectly hidden beneath the earth. Every harvest feels like opening a surprise gift. One potato planted months earlier can multiply into several pounds of fresh food. It's no wonder potatoes have remained one of humanity's most important crops for generations. They're productive,
versatile, and surprisingly beginner-friendly. For many new gardeners, growing potatoes becomes the moment they truly believe, I can do this. Common mistakes to avoid. Now that you know which vegetables are easiest to grow, let's make sure you avoid the mistakes that prevent so many beginners from succeeding. First, don't overwater. Plants need moisture, but roots also need oxygen. Constantly soggy soil suffocates them. Instead, water deeply when the soil begins drying near the surface. Second, don't overcrowd your plants. Tiny seedlings eventually become mature vegetables. Give them room to breathe. Better airflow means healthier plants and fewer diseases. Third, don't ignore sunlight. Most vegetables need at least 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight every day. Without enough light, even the healthiest plants struggle. Fourth, harvest regularly. Many vegetables respond by producing even more food. Finally, start small. One raised bed, a few containers, or even 3 or 4 vegetables. A manageable garden teaches far more than one that's too large to care for. Final thoughts. Every experienced gardener remembers their first successful harvest. It wasn't always perfect. Some vegetables were small, some plants struggled, mistakes were made. But none of that mattered, because the moment you harvest something you've grown with your own hands, something changes. You begin seeing food differently. You appreciate the seasons. You notice the weather. You start paying attention to the tiny details of nature that once went unnoticed. Gardening isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Every seed you plant teaches you something. Every season makes you a little more confident. And before long, you'll look back and realize that the garden you once thought was impossible has become one of your favorite places to spend time. So, if you've been waiting for the perfect moment to begin, this is it. Choose one vegetable from today's list, plant it, care for it, learn from it. Because every expert gardener was once a beginner who simply decided to start. Which of these vegetables are you excited to grow first? Is it potatoes, cherry tomatoes, zucchini, or something else? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear about your gardening plans. And if you enjoy practical gardening tips, beginner-friendly growing guides, and simple ways to harvest more food from your own backyard, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next video. Until next time, happy gardening and keep growing.